and this is actually the brochure from then, but I read about it, and I said, this is just something, this is, you know, when I hadn't been able to sit in the colored waiting room and felt like there was vision, it's sort of like it's in the past, and so you know how it came out. But when you're in the middle of it, you don't know. It wasn't planned to have the violence, and it wasn't planned to have the cars being burned. And so you're just in the middle of it, trying to, you know, protect yourself and do what you think you should do. So it's very, very scary.
How did others treat you when they learn about your beliefs, both black and white?
Are you talking about like in college?
Yeah, like your friends.
Friends. There were a few discussions I had with people who I could tell were really prejudiced, but it was more of an intellectual discussion that I would have with them. Most people, after people knew on campus that I was involved in the civil rights movement, I noticed that people started treating me differently. So there were some people who just didn't want to have anything to do with me, and then a few people who thought it was a good thing, and so those would have been my good friends. Yeah, people didn't like to talk about it a lot, so it was just more subtle. Probably the kinds of things you experience all the time, is that you know that people are feeling a certain way about you, and they just treat you subtly. You can tell what their feelings are.
Do you still keep in contact with like any of those people who, you know, were your friends and who did support how you felt?
I stayed in touch with people that I worked with in the civil rights movement. A few people. My brother, who was in college at the same time I was, he was very supportive. So when 40 years later, when I went back to Mississippi and visited all the places I had been, I asked him if he wanted to go with me, because he'd never been there. And so he was a part of that. That was also where we were working on a documentary. So there was a camera crew there and everything, and he got to be a part of that whole thing.
What did your parents say when you told them you were going to Mississippi for the summer?
Well, what their feeling was, because I put it in the light of that this was something I really believed in, and that I felt I just had to go. And because it was based on beliefs that they had taught me when I was young, what their response was, well, if this is something you really feel you need to do, then we'll support you. But after I decided to go, and this is one thing I wanted to show. This was what made me want to go to Mississippi. This was a brochure. It was just hanging on a bulletin board in college, and just the picture somehow said Mississippi Summer Project, and I opened it up, and this is actually the brochure from then. But I read about it, and I said, this is just something. This is, you know, when I hadn't been able to sit in the colored waiting room and felt like there was something I really wanted to do. I felt like this is something I could actually do. I could go back and do some things to maybe help. So when I put it in that way to my parents, they just said, you know, we'll support you. But then before I left, there were 3 of my fellow workers who had been missing, and it turned out they were killed later. So that was very scary for my parents, I'm sure, to send me off or let me go, knowing that there were other people on the project who had been killed.
Yeah.
And I was only 21, which is, I mean, in those days, being so protected, to get on a bus and go someplace by myself was the first time.
Was it like really nervous for you to do that? Like, you didn't go with any friends or anything?
No, I went all alone. And I got on a bus in Des Moines. My parents took me to the bus station, and it was more than a 24-hour ride. So I had to ride on the bus all night, and sleep sitting up. And we went clear through this deep south, the same way we had gone when I went with the other group of students when we went down to New Orleans. So, but this time I was by myself, and we stopped in all these little towns in Mississippi, and all the way to Jackson. I went to Jackson, Mississippi was where I was headed.
Why did you elect to go on the bus to Mississippi for the summer project?
I think it probably had to do with money. I had never flown, and I don't even know that there were flights in those days. I'd never been on an airplane, so that was out. There was nobody who was going to drive me down there. So the only thing I could do was to just get on a bus and go.
What was the goal for the project?
Well, there were a lot of things, but I would say the major thing was to educate Southern Black people that they should be able to register to vote. In those days, Black people were not registered to vote at all. I mean, that's almost unthinkable to us now, because so many people voted that we have a Black president for the first time. And had there not been African Americans all over the country voting for him, he would never have won. But 40 years ago, when I went on this summer project, Black people couldn't register. If they tried, they would be, during the Civil Rights Movement, they were jailed for trying to register to vote. Or if they were let in the courthouse, they would be asked to fill out this huge questionnaire about the history of the United States, things that none of us would know. And that was the purpose, to ask questions that they couldn't answer. And so that when they couldn't answer them, they'd say, well, you can't register because you didn't answer these questions. But white people weren't given those tests when they registered.